Okay, so hello everyone, and thank you for coming to our job and internship search workshop. I'm Amanda Shaw. I am the Associate Director of Career Planning.
I'm Jaden. I'm a graduate assistant here at Career Planning.
All right, so before we actually get into the nitty gritty of the job and internship search, there are some important things we cover first. So first and foremost, these are our services for the sake of the time of the people who are on this call with us live. They've already heard this information, so I'm not going to review this, but you're more than welcome to come see us either via an appointment on which you can make on Handshake or join us on Walk-in Wednesdays, and we can help with all of the services that are listed here on this slide. It's also important to note when you're thinking about the job and internship search about these career competencies that employers are looking for. So I actually just got an email about 3 minutes before this presentation that they've updated these. We've been waiting for an update, so I'm very excited about that. And the newest update is about inclusion and equity. So that is definitely something that we're going to be adding into our portfolio and hoping that our students can work on that skill set and have that competency because that is definitely something that employers are putting out there as something that they value. So we'll just add equity and inclusion to this list. So these are skills that employers absolutely can ask you about in the interview process, and these are skills that you definitely want to highlight while you're searching for jobs and internships. And we always talk about these skills and competencies because there is a discord between employers and new employees. So these students and new grads are going into the workforce and they're saying, hey, I'm really excellent at written communication. And the employers are saying, not so much. I wouldn't say excellent, right? So there's that discord that I was talking about, and you can see that there's a difference of opinion on these. And I'm not telling you that there's a difference between the perception of these skill sets to make anyone feel bad about themselves. It's just something to note that an employer is going to not necessarily be in your generation. They could have a very different understanding of these different skill sets. And it's important to make sure that we are looking into what those generations think of in terms of what is professionalism to somebody who's in the baby boomer generation or Gen X versus Gen Z or millennial, right? There's slight differences that can come down to how you dress, could be how you communicate. And there's so many different little differences, but we're just giving you this as a heads up so that you can say in that interview on your first day of work, hey, I know how to be, I know how to think critically. Here's an example. This is when I've done it before. So we want you to start making those connections and leverage those skills and experiences that you already have so that when you hit the job market or your internship, you're going to succeed and be very quick to do so. So as you can see here, the skills definitely are something that you should be listing on your resume. So when you're applying to these jobs and internships, it's absolutely something that you need to demonstrate. The good news with communication skills in terms of written, that is a resume, right? It's a professional piece of work. And we can absolutely help you with writing that and making sure it's the most professional document that it can be. But you can see that there's other skills on here too that we've been talking about that an employer definitely wants to see demonstrated on your resume and not just listed, right? The days where you can just write down that you can work as part of a team aren't here anymore, right? They want you to demonstrate that. They want you to make the connection and say, as a waiter at this restaurant, I worked as part of a team to ensure a positive dining experience for our customers, right? So trying to leverage the skills that you have and connect them to these competencies. So when you're actually thinking about the job and internship search process, your mindset really does matter. And, you know, things have kind of been thrown off with the pandemic. And, you know, usually there was maybe 100 to a couple hundred people applying to big time positions. And now it's kind of upwards of 500 to 600 people applying for that one position. We're expecting that that's going to come down a little bit as the pandemic hopefully eases off a little bit. But it is something that you need to keep in mind, that resilience is absolutely a key aspect of the job and internship search, because it takes time to apply to a job. I can give my personal example. When I was graduating from my master's program, I started applying to positions in February, and I applied to 37 positions. And as somebody who was in a career office at the time for my graduate assistantship, I would kind of argue that I was well equipped to understand what positions I was actually eligible for in terms of competencies and experience and requirements. So out of those 37 jobs that I applied to, I got 2 interviews. And I did end up getting both job offers, one of them from Russell Sage. But from the other 35 organizations, I either heard absolutely nothing, or they closed the search and they said, never mind, we're not hiring for this, or they delayed it 6 months. And this wasn't during a time of high unemployment, right? So I just kind of give that example to tell our students that you have to keep applying, right? You have to be resilient. And it's absolutely possible that you're going to find a job or an internship that you're like, oh man, this is perfect for me. I have to get this. And you invest a lot into that. It's possible that you're not going to get that internship or that job. And that stinks. But it's definitely something that is part of the process. So while you're preparing to do a job in an internship search, be sure that you have willingness to apply to multiple positions and do the legwork and the research, and actually submit the applications, right? And openness to different types of positions. So there isn't just one perfect internship or job. You have to be open to other opportunities that can get you the skills and experiences that you're looking for. You just might have to think a little bit outside of the box sometimes. But that being said, we also want you to really know who you are, and how that fits with that career or that internship that you're applying to, and be confident of yourself, right? All of our students are fantastic. They're hardworking. You know, you got to be confident about what you have. And something that I love telling our students when they're preparing for interviews is you have more experience than you realize. I know that a lot of undergrads say, oh, well, I was just a waiter, or I was just a cashier, or I just worked at McDonald's. And I always say, but those are great experiences, right? That's a huge set of transferable skills that you can apply to any position, right? Those are hard jobs, right? So you just want to keep in mind that you have more experience than you may realize, and bring that into the job and internship search process. So we do have this job and internship checklist that you can access, and I can share the presentation with you after we are done. Hopefully it'll load. There we go. So this is just a little checklist of how you can go about making sure that you're prepared for the job and the internship search. So it starts from the beginning. It could be that you come in and you're already at step 2. You could already be at step 3. You could be starting from the beginning, but this is a really good asset and resource that you can use in your job and internship search. So again, I will be able to share this with you at the end of the presentation, but definitely something that is helpful and that we've had students say really help them get an interview and get an internship or a job offer.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so starting with the job and internship search process, if you already have an idea of what types of positions you want to apply to, you can start by revising your resume and cover letter. You want to tailor these both to the position that you are applying to, and we will get into for like how to tailor your resume and why to tailor your resume in upcoming slides. You should also have 2 lists that you should compile. You should have a list of places that you will be applying to and a list of places that you have already applied to. So this is what the list looks like. You want it to include all of these things. This is important because for the you will apply to part, it's easy to just look at. You have a list of the job description there on the list, what they're looking for. So when you are tailoring your resume or your cover letter, you can easily pull up the list and look to see, what you need. And then when it comes to jobs you have already applied for, like Amanda says, it could take a while. You may forget that you even applied somewhere. So it's good to have that list. You can also, look at it. And if you realize, hey, I never heard back from this company and it's been a while, you can give them a call. And then also, like Amanda said, resilience. You have to keep applying, apply. 1, 2, 5, 10 applications may not be enough. And just because you get an interview does not mean you have an offer. You still want to keep applying and, keep scheduling interviews with companies, even if you do already have an interview scheduled. You want to just keep doing that until you get an offer and until you accept an offer. And we also suggest keeping timing in mind. We suggest starting this process about 6 months ahead of time. A lot of places, especially in the science fields, they take maybe up to a year to finish their hiring process. It's competitive, so there's a bunch of resumes, cover letters, interviews to go through. So it could take a really long time, and you shouldn't wait till the last minute.
Yeah, and something that I forgot to say earlier, so on average, and this is a pre-pandemic stat, but on average, it takes about 35 job applications to get one interview. That's why I shared, for me, it was 37 job applications, and I got 2 interviews. But it is one of those things that, unfortunately, you do just have to keep applying, and it's absolutely possible that you applied to 2 jobs and you get a job offer from one of those. But it could also be that you apply to 100 jobs. And it really depends on the market. It depends on your what you're applying with, and we'll get into that in a second.
All right. And also another important thing is to submit everything the employer asks for and only what the employer asks for. So if they only ask for a resume, you send it to us and we'll review it with you, and then you submit that and only that. And if they ask for a resume, cover letter, and a list of references, again, we'll review the resume and cover letter with you, and then you can submit those. So nothing more, nothing less, just what they ask for.
Okay, so we do have this resume guide. We have 2 of them actually on our website. So if you go to sage.edu/career, it'll take you to this website, and you'll see that there is a page called Resources for Students. We've got a ton of information on here, including our career guide. So there are 2 different resume guides. They just have the majors for each campus. So Troy is going to have the Troy majors, Albany majors. So just to showcase what the resume guide looks like, it is a 20-page document. It's long, but it's intentionally long. There's about 10 sample resumes in there, and it goes into a lot of detail of what should be on your resume, what skills and experiences that you want to list, how to list that information. It goes through what should be in your bullet points, right? Some action verbs that you can use. And some formatting tips here, because formatting is really important. And then our sample resumes. So this is free for all of our students and alums to access. We highly recommend reviewing our guide. These are resumes that employers have seen. They've accepted these resumes. They've hired people because of these resumes. So we always recommend that you take our advice for what to put on a resume and how to make a resume versus the internet. A lot of the times the sample resumes that you find on the internet are not actually from humans who know anything about recruiting or the job search process. So it could be someone who is an art student or graphic designer, and they say, hey, I have to make a template, here you go. So it's not necessarily what an employer would be looking for, but they may look great, but we just say, please keep in mind that what we are giving you is employer-backed information. And the reason that we ask you to use our information is because of something called an applicant tracking system, which I'll refer to as ATS from now on. So ATS, it's becoming more and more common. It's becoming more affordable for these ATS systems to use artificial intelligence. So it's a computer that will be scanning your resume. As you can see, a lot of employers are using these. Russell Sage uses one when we hire people. Most organizations are using them. They're pretty cost effective, and it can just be as simple as a resume and job application database, but it can also be sophisticated where it's using artificial intelligence to actually scan through these resumes and look at what is on the resume. So templates, the things you download from the internet or from Microsoft Word or from Google Docs, don't always run through these applicant tracking systems. So just to give an example, if you search for a resume template, you can see here a lot of them, one, have color. That's not great for an employer. They just want a simple, traditional black and white document. But a lot of these also have these columns, right? So when you're looking at these resumes, for a human, we can make that intuitive understanding of that's a column. I'm going to read that information in that column only, and then I'll move on to the next section. But artificial intelligence, while it's really smart, it's also not that smart. It reads left to right, and it's going to say, hey, I'm going to read what's in this column and continue across the page. So after one line, it's going to say, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. The sentence that it started with is not the same with what it ended with. And you're not going to get through that applicant tracking system if the ATS is saying, hey, there's errors on here. And these applicant tracking systems find about 8 times more errors than the average human does on their resume. That can come across in terms of syntax, so where you're putting commas, periods, all that good stuff. It could be grammar, could be spelling errors, it could be formatting errors. So that's why we kind of say, come to us. For the most part, I think maybe only this one and maybe this one would actually run through an applicant tracking system. And that would disqualify all the rest of them just based off of the fact that it has those columns. So that's just something that we always recommend. Don't do a template. It's pretty basic formatting, and we can absolutely help you with that. So you really want to, oh, sure, go ahead.
All right. So like when you guys review resumes from us, do you put it through the system to see if it catches anything?
So we don't. We're potentially seeing if we can add something like that to our database. Okay. So there are like 6 major brands of an applicant tracking system. So I am, and Jaden can confirm this, I've been going to lots of webinars, doing a lot of research. I've been passing this on to my graduate assistants and training them on how to kind of act as the human applicant tracking system. And that's a really good question because we absolutely want to make sure that our students are 100% prepared for the application process. So what an applicant tracking system really does is it looks for those keywords that are in the job description. And this is why it's important to tailor your resume, because if you're sending a generic resume, say you have one resume, you send it to 18 different employers for a similar position, and you don't really tailor it, you don't include those keywords, first of all, they're going to know that it's a generic cover letter. By tailoring it and putting in those keywords that you're seeing in each job description, and they may be similar, right, if you're applying to similar positions, but by putting those keywords in your resume, a human and an applicant tracking system are going to say, oh, this person understands what we're looking for in this position. So that's why we always talk about including those keywords, right? If you're looking at a job description and it says, hey, Brett, if you want to get this position, you need to have teamwork skills and communication skills. If you don't use those 2 words in your resume, a human and the applicant tracking system aren't going to say, well, I'm just assuming that Brett has these skills. You know, as a college student, he must. That they're not going to make that assumption. So while we don't have access to an applicant tracking system to do that, like I said, we're looking into the possibility of adding that, but we're also training ourselves so that we can kind of act as the human applicant tracking system.
Gotcha. I was just curious.
Yeah, yeah. You can go to, I think JobScan is a sample, or it's one of the softwares that can help you prepare to run through an applicant tracking system. And I think you have 5 free uploads as a student to run your resume through an applicant tracking system. I haven't yet done that because I was trying to be intentional with running my resume through certain things, because I would rather have students do that, right? So that's absolutely something, again, that's JobScan. I think, like I said, I think there's 5 free scans. But I haven't done that, so I don't know what that process is, but it's definitely an option.
Okay.
Yeah. So why you also want to tailor your resume is you want to show you're fit for the position. Again, you're going to be doing that by demonstrating those keywords and making those connections. And something to really note, and it's a hard concept to kind of wrap your brain around, especially when we look at your resume and you're like, okay, I'm done. And I always say, well, you're done for now, right? Until you add the next position, until you grow in your current position and have to add another job responsibility, right? So it is a living, breathing document. It'll change over time. As you gain more experience, as you gain more skills, you'll be adding to it. And a targeted resume leads to a more successful job application. So we can't talk about the job and the internship search process without talking about resumes, because that is the thing that gets your foot in the door for an interview, right? So you can apply to hundreds of jobs and internships, but if you don't have a quality resume, you don't have a super good chance of getting through to the interview stage. So that's why we would say a targeted resume is best and really can lead to more success in your search.
That's why I asked last time, because I always forget to unmute. Another great way to tailor your resume, besides using those keywords, is to put all of your relevant skills on top. They may or may not be your current position, and that's fine. It'll be on top in its own relevant skills or relevant experience section. And it can include your certifications, full-time jobs, part-time jobs, volunteer work, internships, anything relevant to the specific position that you are applying for.
Sorry, the little drop-down menu wasn't allowing me to unmute. Yeah, and it's important to note that the most important stuff should be listed on the top third of your resume, because the average person looking at your resume spends about 7 to 10 seconds looking at your resume. So you want those skills to be incorporated into those bullet points if you can. Those certifications that would set you apart or would uniquely qualify you for the position. That's why you can kind of rearrange it so that, to go with what Jaden said, you want the most important stuff on that top third of your resume. So you can also revamp your bullet points even for the less related experiences, right? So I had a really great conversation with a student recently who is applying to marketing jobs. And she said, well, I don't actually have any marketing experience. I've had to work as a waitress all throughout my time as a student to help pay for college. And I said, okay, well, let's put a spin on being a waitress. How do you market things as a waitress? And she was like, okay, well, I guess I talk to them about specials. I try to, if they ask for advice, I market the different items that we have. I encourage them to share the word of our restaurant, right? So you can put a spin on everything. And I don't mean that in like a negative way, right? But you can make those connections and it's going to show that you're being creative, right? So if an employer is looking for that person who's able to connect the dots, be creative, be innovative, make those connections, you can do that for less related positions, ones that aren't directly relevant. So again, you can look at the job description for more keywords. So if you're looking through it and you're like, well, this skill set that they're looking for doesn't actually fit into my most relevant job that I have, but I did this in another position as a student worker, as a cashier at the store. You can include that in there too, right? So you can include the keywords throughout your resume and highlight those skills that the positions require.
Okay, so another resource that you can use besides us is a friend or anyone, your family, friends. You can have them read your resume, and if they are able to accurately explain why you're interested in the position and why you're qualified based off of your resume, then you have a great resume and you can submit it. It's all great. And if they can't figure out either one of those, then you just have to tailor your resume a little bit more so that people can kind of look at it and understand.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the job and internship search process. Now that we've talked about resumes, are there any questions about resumes before we do move on? Okay, great. We will move on then.
All right. So when it comes to actually searching for the job and internships, we do recommend Handshake. You can get there by sage.joinhandshake.com, or you can go on our career planning page on the website. We have a link there too.
Oops, sorry, this is the administrator view. I'll change it.
When you do log on, I believe you can log on with your Sage credentials, right? Yeah. So your normal email. It'll ask you to create your profile. It's going to ask you about job interests, career interests, a bunch of things just so that it can give you job and internship suggestions that are made basically just for you. You can also upload your resume and a headshot. And so employers can view these and recruit you, or you can go to the job section right there up in the low corner, and it'll list jobs on the side here and internships. And you can search through those. They'll either be very similar to what you want or most likely exactly what you want after you make the profile. And
yeah, I just wanted to showcase that you can save jobs.
Yeah, which is another good thing because
Yeah.
you're not on there and you're not like, oh, I'm gonna apply to all of these right now. So it is a good thing to save your jobs as well. But another thing to keep in mind is that after you fill out your profile and create it, and then you go to the job section, if they don't have things you want, or there's nothing there, don't give up. Don't let that discourage you. We encourage you to check back regularly. It's constantly being updated with new positions, jobs, and internships.
Okay, so one of the other job search strategies or internship search strategies that we want to talk about is LinkedIn. So if you ever come in for an internship or job search appointment, we'll start with Handshake and then we'll go on to these other great platforms that you can use. So I'm going to take you to my own LinkedIn page. And you can see you can just go to linkedin.com/jobs and this will come up. So keep in mind, this is based off of my profile. So it's going to come up with different things, right? So it's going to come up with suggested job search. I think it's hilarious that it thinks that I could do digital media supervisor. That's not something I could do. But this is really great that it will say, hey, here are some suggestions, first of all. But you can also go through and say, here are the jobs that I've applied for or I'm interested in. You can set up job alerts. So you'll put in keywords, right? So I don't have any, but it can absolutely, you can tailor this to the search that you're conducting. You can do skill assessments, right? And then there are some more things that you can do here. Again, I always say, if you're doing anything with resumes, check with us first. Make sure it's something we would approve of. But it's really cool that you can do this. Also, check this out. You have to pay for resume help a lot of the time. We're already here for you. It's part of tuition. Why not take advantage of us? But you can see here that there are some positions that it's saying, hey, you might be interested in this. This may be something that you could be good at. So there's tons of positions on here. You can obviously tailor it so based off of title, skill, company, where you're looking for. So LinkedIn is fantastic in that aspect. There's also a lot of information on how to create your LinkedIn profile. So if you don't have one, I highly recommend it. It's free to create. It's really easy to do. If you already have a resume, just like with Handshake, you can just upload your resume and it fills in a lot of that. And if it doesn't let you upload it, you can just copy and paste. And the good news about LinkedIn is there's no limit, right? So I have a 2-page resume. I'm not going to go above a 2-page resume, but my LinkedIn can go a little bit further in depth of who I am and what I've accomplished. You can also click here. You'll see that there is a LinkedIn profile guide. So what you should include, how to set it apart, right? How to create the profile, how to write it. And LinkedIn is actually really great, and it helps. It gives you prompts. So I don't have a professional summary in there right now. Again, I use this as a teaching tool so I can showcase my profile, and I can show you my profile so you can see what it looks like. So you can upload a cover photo now, apparently, headshot, right? You can see that I don't have the strongest profile right now according to LinkedIn. Partially that's because I don't have an about summary, but it's given me one right here saying this is what you could include. It tells you who's viewed your profile, how many searches I've appeared in, right? And this is important. I am not looking for a job right now. If I were, I could actually turn on an alert saying I'm ready to be recruited. So that's something that's pretty cool. But you can include your experience in here, right? So what else you've done, education, volunteer experience, right? So this is, it's really nice that you can really include this, but it gives you a lot of prompts, right? So it's nice that you can kind of use that to fill it out. There's also profile tips here. And then tips for a better profile. So I'm not going to click on all the links, but definitely something that you can access. And then one of the things that we recommend, because like something like 70 to 80% of jobs and internships are found through your network, we highly recommend that you network with SAGE alums. And this is pretty straightforward to do with LinkedIn. LinkedIn makes it kind of easy for you. So if you just go search in the search bar, Russell Sage College, this will come up and you'll see here, it says alumni. And this is cool that you can kind of search through this. So something has happened and I have to look into it. We don't have 406 alums who live in South Africa, Spain. I don't know what's happening. I'll have to look into that. But if you say, I want to, hey, I really want to work for St. Peter's Health Partners. So you'll be able to click into that. And then you can actually see all of the alums who are in the Russell Sage database who have said at some point they have worked at St. Peter's in some way, shape, or form. And then you can connect with the people, send them a message, and then start that conversation of, how did you get to working at St. Peter's? And then, like I said, network.
And in addition to LinkedIn and Handshake, you have all of these other options. So Indeed, the internships, the New York State is a great site for internships. I used it and it helped me. I couldn't find an internship anywhere and I found one on here. So I definitely highly recommend that one. I do also recommend just Googling it, like it says right down there. No one really thinks about it, I feel like, but it is a good resource. If you know the company you want to work for and you can't find it on any of these platforms, you can just Google it, go to the website, go to the career part of it and go from there. If you don't know what company you want to work for, but you know what kind of company, so like a hospital, but you don't know what hospital, you can look up hospital jobs, hospitals, internships near me, or you can do the job title, so nursing, psychology, Google will always have something for you. It may not be what you want, it may not be in the area, but you can try. It's just another thing to try.
Sorry, Jaden, were you done with that slide?
No, I was done. That
Okay.
was actually perfect.
Okay, there you go. So some additional tips. So just like Jaden was talking about, sometimes there aren't going to be all the positions that you're looking for on these websites. And again, just like Jaden said, you have to check the websites of the employers that you might be interested in. So this just comes with being an informed and educated career searcher, right? So trying to figure out what companies would interest you, where you think that you would fit within their culture or their culture is interesting to you. It's really important because it costs money to post on job sites. A lot of the positions that you see on Indeed, Monster, Google, all these different places, ZipRecruiter, the employer has to pay per click. I always joke that half of the money that they spend must be from career offices showing students how to search for these positions. But it does cost, it can cost upwards of like $500+ to post. So sometimes they just post it on their own position or their own website. And it's really easy to figure out what these open positions are if you know what companies are of interest to you. So again, I will just use, instead of St. Peter's, I'll just use Unity House of Troy, right? So say you're like, I want to work for this great nonprofit. This is something I'm interested in. They may not be posting on the website, or on any of these websites. So you would just search employment opportunities at Unity House of Troy. That's how I found my position at Russell Sage. They didn't post it on a job board. It was posted on their website. I applied there. Even with it just being on Russell Sage's website alone, we got over 100 applications for one position when I was applying. So it is something to note that other people do know about this too, but not as many. They're always going to look at the search engines first. So I highly, highly, highly recommend doing that research ahead of time. And if you're interested in like graphic design and social media marketing, whatnot, you're like, oh, Fingerpaint is a great company that's based in Saratoga. That's a company I want to look for. That's fantastic, but find others as well. Find out who their competitors are, why they're competitors, where they are, right? And do that legwork ahead of time so that when it comes time to look into the internship search or job search, you already have a list of potential employers. I did that when I was applying to jobs after graduate school. I literally broke down the different states that I was interested in moving to. And I said, here are the colleges in those states and the areas that I'd be interested in moving to. And I listed them out so I could check on a regular basis and see if they were hiring. It took like an hour or so to compile that list. But after that, I was able to really successfully every day check easily. There was a link with that spreadsheet that I sent before. I just had the link, clicked on it, saw they weren't hiring. Okay, move on to the next one. And it ended up paying off, right? I ended up getting a position where they hadn't advertised on a job board. So highly recommend that. And then, like I said, with LinkedIn, network, 70 to 80% of jobs are found through networking. Every single job that I have ever had has been achieved through my network, whether I realized it or not. From my first job as being a soccer referee when I was like 14 to my current job, every single position I've ever had, student worker, internship, this position, all through my network of some way, shape, or form. Could have been through a family member, could be through a friend, staff member, faculty member, a former coworker's former coworker, right? Like there's different layers of network. But use your network. There is nothing wrong in telling your friends' parents, telling your parents, telling your guardians, your grandparents, whomever, I'm looking for a job or an internship. Do you know of anything? Because they're going to hire somebody who they know, or who somebody could say, hey, I know Jaden. Jaden's fantastic. You should consider Jaden for an internship. They're going to take Jaden over someone who they have never gotten a referral from. So it's always worth networking. So that is the end of the job and internship component. So we always say like us on social media, but do you have any questions for us about the job and the internship process.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
So like, what do you think is a good strategy for the sense that, don't you think it's harder for people to like get jobs when they just graduate and just like start going out there like right
Mhm.
away? Like, I think
Yeah,
like, you know, you mentioned like setting up profiles online,
Mhm.
any like initial beginner tips for like
Yeah.
people who are just getting in the game?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brett. So I would recommend doing informational interviews. It seems like a daunting task. So an informational interview, that's just something, you know, if you, so say you reach out, if you want to be a physical therapist, and you reach out to either an alum of SAGE, which hopefully you do, who is a physical therapist, or a local physical therapy office, and you say, hey, I'm really interested in learning more about how you got to be a physical therapist, what your day-to-day is like. And you can start getting to know. So that's one, expanding your network, right, by meeting that person. But it's also being educated about what your day-to-day is going to be like in whatever position you're applying for, right? So again, with the example of the physical therapist, obviously you have to go to a doctor of physical therapy school to actually be a physical therapist. But the earlier you start creating these network connections and being informed on your career search, the more opportunities that you can come up with, right? So, you know, informational interview can really open the doors to part-time work, to volunteer opportunities, to internships, so that you can kind of, again, get your foot in the door. So like I said, someone is more likely to say, hey, I know of this person, we should consider them for this position. And that person will automatically get moved to the pile of, let's look at their resume again. Let's call them in for a screening interview. That's happened to me multiple times where somebody's like, man, I really want to work at Russell Sage. And if I think they'd be a good fit, I'll pass on to their supervisor and I'll say, hey, you know what? I think Jaden would be an awesome fit for this office. I can tell you a little bit about their work, but in the meantime, they're going to say, okay, I would rather know that Amanda says, I like this person over someone who they don't know. So that's where that informational interview can really be helpful. And I know that for some classes, you have that as an assignment, but it's always a good thing that can really start building your network. So definitely informational interview. And then I would just reach out to alums of the program. So whether it's a formal informational interview or you're just getting to know somebody. So it could be a young alum of the DPT program, or whichever program you know, you end up going into, or whatever career you end up going into. You can reach out to those alums and just talk to them about how they got to where they are and if they have any tips for you, right? Because people from that, whatever field you end up pursuing, they're going to be the experts in the field, and they're going to be able to give you really good tips, and they could connect you to people too. So does that kind of,
they're like a trailblazer in a sense, you know?
yeah, exactly. And you know, I've had, so I can give an example. I'm part of a social media group for student affairs professionals, my job, right? And somebody posted in the group and said, hey, I'm a graduate student in a higher education student affairs master's program. I have to interview people in a career office about their job. Is anybody willing? And I responded and I said, absolutely. I don't know this person. I've never met him. And I said, sure, here's my email address. I'd happy to be, you know, to help you out with this. And that person through that interview, even though I don't know them, right? But if they were ever to apply for a position at SAGE, I could actually say, oh yeah, no, I have met this person. We didn't go to the same graduate program. We don't work at the same college, right? But again, I now, that person has me as part of their network, right? So it's nice. There often is a community that wants to help. If anybody from my undergrad ever reaches out to me about anything, I'm like, yes, what can I do to help you? because I remember what it was like to be a student and not know exactly what I wanted to do or how to break into this field. And alums are really good at helping current students. So that's why LinkedIn is so nice. It's free. You can connect with these alums and it's like a safe space to do it, right? It's online community. And they are alums of Russell Sage or the Sage Colleges or Sage College of Albany or some iteration of it, right? But it's a really great network to tap into. Yeah.
Those are good ideas. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions? That was a great question.
Well, I would also suggest like while you're in school to do as much as you can relating to your field, so internships and volunteer work, because that goes into your resume. And usually the reason why it's hard when you graduate to get a job is because of lack of experience. Like, yes, you have the degree, but no experience. And even if you didn't work anywhere, you volunteered there or you interned there. So you technically did work there, just not for money. And you still have the experience, so they can't say that you don't. So that would also help.
No, that's a good point too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also, you know, when you think about your network, so I don't think I was really clear when I was talking about, so my current position, I was a graduate assistant at St. Rose in their career office, and my supervisor at the time had done her internship in grad school, same program that I was part of, at Russell Sage. So she had done that with the Office of Academic Support. And so when this position came available, I found it and I said, I don't know anyone at Russell Sage. And I was talking about it to my former supervisor and she said, oh, I did my internship there. Let me see if the people that I worked with or that I know from Russell Sage are still there. So she got into contact with them. She said, hey, I know somebody who would be great for this position. Is the position still open? How could they get in touch if so? And that person, Beth Maney, who's the director of academic support, said, or academic advisement, said, absolutely, I'll have the director of the career office reach out to Amanda, give me her email address. So the next day, the director reached out to me, said, I heard you're interested, please apply with your resume, cover letter, list of references. I did that. And then I still feel bad about this. So they had actually completed the interview process and I came in like 3 days later and stole the position from someone. I feel really bad, but you know, it ended up working out. But I wouldn't have gotten, because I did not know someone at Russell Sage, but I knew somebody who knew somebody who knew someone, right? So like, that's a level of networking that can really get you a job. I've known friends of mine who reached out to an alum and that alum didn't know someone, but they reached out to another alum and then that alum connected that person to a job, right? So like the network it can get really complicated, but the more you use it, the more successful you will be. And we have tons of people who have gone through their time at Russell Sage as an undergrad, as a grad student, who are willing to connect with students. So highly recommend.
A good story.
Yeah. Any other questions?
You said you were gonna like post this, right? Or,
Yes, I can. Yep. So I will.